I need you to understand something before I tell you this story. I'm not the kind of person who believes in ghost towns or urban legends. I'm a software engineer. I deal with facts and data and logical solutions. But what happened to me 3 weeks ago has shattered every rational belief I ever held about reality, about the places we drive through every single day without questioning their existence. If you've ever felt that creeping sensation while driving late at night that something isn't quite right about the road you're on, if you've ever taken a wrong turn and ended up somewhere that felt too quiet, too empty, too wrong to be real, then you need to hear this. Hit that like button and subscribe, because what I'm about to share will change how you see every road trip, every GPS route, every late night drive for the rest of your life. It started on a Tuesday night in October. I was driving back from a client meeting in Chicago, taking Interstate 80 west toward home in Iowa. The meeting had run late, and by the time I got on the road, it was already past midnight. I'd made this drive dozens of times before, but I was tired, really tired, the kind of bone-deep exhaustion that makes your eyelids feel like concrete. So when I saw the sign for a rest stop, I decided to pull over for some coffee. I pulled in to what I thought was a standard highway rest stop, fluorescent lights buzzing over vending machines and restrooms. But when I parked and got out of my car, something felt off immediately. The air was too still, like someone had sucked all the wind out of the world. The parking lot was completely empty except for my Honda Civic, not even an 18-wheeler, which is strange for a major interstate at any time. The building looked normal from the outside, but all the lights were on, and yet I couldn't see anyone moving around inside. I walked up to the main entrance and pushed through the glass doors, and that's when I noticed the silence. Complete, absolute silence. No humming from vending machines, no fluorescent light buzz, no distant highway noise. Nothing. The place was pristine, like someone had just finished cleaning it. But there was dust on the information pamphlets, and the coffee in the machines looked like it had been sitting there for hours. I grabbed a cup anyway, fed some bills into the machine, and listened to my footsteps echo in that unnatural quiet as I walked back to my car. But when I got outside, that's when I realized I had a problem. The entrance ramp back to the interstate was gone. Not blocked, not under construction, just gone. Where there should have been a merge lane leading back to I-80, there was just an empty field stretching out into darkness. I stood there for a full minute, coffee getting cold in my hands, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. I pulled out my phone to check my GPS, and that's when things went from weird to absolutely terrifying. My GPS showed that I was in the middle of nowhere. Not at a rest stop. Not near any highway, just a blank spot on the map with no roads, no buildings, nothing. I tried refreshing the app, restarting my phone, but the result was the same. According to every map application I tried, I was standing in an empty field somewhere in rural Illinois, at least 30 miles from the nearest road. But I could see my car, I could see the rest stop building. I could see what looked like a 2-lane road leading away from the parking lot into the darkness. Leave a comment below and tell me what you would do in this situation. You're tired, you're alone, you're supposedly in the middle of nowhere, and your only way out appears to be a road that doesn't exist on any map. Would you get in your car and drive? Would you stay put and wait for help? I have a feeling some of you watching this have been in similar situations. I chose to drive. The road leading away from the rest stop looked real enough, solid asphalt with yellow lines painted down the center, so I got back in my car and started following it. The headlights cut through the darkness ahead of me, illuminating nothing but empty farmland on both sides. No houses, no barns, no fence posts, just flat, open space stretching out forever. I drove for what felt like hours, but according to my dashboard clock was only about 20 minutes when I saw lights up ahead. It was a town. A small town with streetlights and storefronts and houses with warm yellow light glowing in their windows. The sign at the edge of town read, "Welcome to Millbrook, population 847, established 1952. I remember thinking that was oddly specific for such a small place, but I was so relieved to see signs of civilization that I didn't question it. I needed gas, I needed directions, and I needed to figure out how to get back to a real highway that actually existed on maps. The main street was lined with the kind of small-town businesses you'd expect: a hardware store, a diner, a barber shop, a small grocery store, all of them looking like they'd been frozen in time somewhere around 1985. The streetlights cast everything in this warm orange glow that should have been comforting, but somehow felt artificial, like stage lighting. I pulled up to what looked like the only gas station and got out of my car. The pumps were old, the kind where you have to prepay inside, and they had prices that seemed way too low. $2.39 a gallon, which hadn't been realistic for at least 15 years. But they worked, so I filled up my tank and went inside to pay and ask for directions. The clerk behind the counter was a middle-aged woman with graying hair and a friendly smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. She was knitting something, some kind of sweater, and she barely looked up when I walked in. I paid for the gas and asked her how to get back to Interstate 80, and she gave me this puzzled look like I'd asked her for directions to Mars. She said she'd never heard of Interstate 80, which is impossible because it's one of the major cross-country highways, but then she offered to draw me a map to the nearest state highway. She pulled out a piece of paper and started sketching roads and landmarks, talking about how to get to the highway that would take me east toward Chicago or west toward Des Moines. The map she drew showed roads that curved and twisted in ways that didn't match anything I remembered from the area. She marked several small towns along the route, places with names like Cedar Falls and Brookhaven and Millfield, none of which I'd ever heard of, despite having lived in Iowa my whole life. But she seemed so confident that I thanked her, took the map, and got back in my car to follow her directions. That's when I realized I couldn't leave. I drove to the edge of town, following the main street until it turned into a 2-lane road heading east, the direction the clerk had indicated would take me toward Chicago. But after about 5 minutes of driving, I saw the welcome sign again. Welcome to Millbrook. Population 847, established 1952. I was back at the same edge of town I'd just left, approaching from the opposite direction. I turned around and tried going west. Same thing. 5 minutes of driving through empty farmland, and then the welcome sign again, this time approaching town from the west. I tried every road leading out of Millbrook, and they all led back to the same welcome sign, the same main street, the same gas station where the same clerk sat behind a counter knitting the same sweater that never seemed to get any longer. By this point, I was starting to panic. I parked in front of the diner and tried calling 911, but my phone had no signal. I tried calling my wife, my boss, anyone, but every call failed immediately. The phone showed full bars, but no network connection, like it was trying to connect to cell towers that didn't exist. I sat in my car in the parking lot of that diner, hands shaking, trying to figure out what was happening to me. If you're still watching this, if you haven't clicked away thinking I'm completely insane, then you understand that feeling of being trapped somewhere that logic says shouldn't exist. You know what it's like to question your own sanity, to wonder if you're having some kind of breakdown or if reality itself has somehow broken down around you. Hit the like button if this is resonating with you, because I need to know I'm not alone in this experience. I decided to get out and explore the town on foot, thinking maybe I could find someone who could explain what was happening. The diner looked like it was open, warm light spilling out through the windows and the smell of coffee and bacon drifting out. But when I walked up and tried to go inside, the door wouldn't budge. Not locked, just stuck, like it was painted shut or welded in place. I could see people inside, shadows moving around behind the windows, but no matter how hard I pushed or pulled, that door would not open. Same thing with every other business on Main Street. The lights were on, I could see movement inside. Sometimes I could even hear muffled conversation and the sounds of normal daily life, but every door was sealed shut. The hardware store, the grocery store, the barber shop, even the post office, all of them looked operational but completely inaccessible. It was like watching a movie set, all facade with no substance behind it. But the houses were different. The residential streets branching off from Main Street were lined with small, single-family homes, most of them with front porches and well-maintained yards. And unlike the businesses, the front doors of these houses would open. The first house I tried had an unlocked front door that swung open easily when I turned the knob. I called out, "Hello," not wanting to just barge into someone's home uninvited, but there was no answer. The house was furnished and lived in, but empty of people. There were dishes in the sink, newspapers folded on the coffee table, family photos on the mantelpiece, but no sign of the people who lived there. The newspaper was dated 3 days ago, which should have been reassuring, except that the headline read, "Local man wins state lottery with numbers from Dream," and the paper was called the Millbrook Gazette, a publication I was pretty sure didn't exist. I went through several houses on that street, and they were all the same. Lived in, but empty, like the residents had just stepped out for a few minutes and would be back any moment. In one house, I found dinner still warm on the kitchen table, meatloaf and mashed potatoes and green beans, like someone had just finished cooking and then vanished mid-meal. In another house, the television was on, playing what looked like a local news broadcast about a county fair, but the anchors' faces were blurred out, and their voices sounded underwater. But I got out, and if you ever find yourself somewhere like Millbrook, you can get out too. Remember that your car is real, that the world you came from is still there, and that no matter how comfortable the trap becomes, it's still a trap. Keep moving, keep trying, and never stop believing that there's a way back to the roads that actually lead somewhere.